It is dinner time somewhere in the world right now. Someone is standing over a stove, waiting for water to boil, and they have no idea that they are repeating the single most important thing our ancestors ever did. Because before writing, before farming, before the wheel, before language itself, there was a fire. And on that fire, someone cooked the very first meal. But what was it? Who made it? And why did that one simple act quietly change what it means to be human? Let us go back and find out. To find the first cooked meal, you have to travel much further back than you think. Not a few thousand years, not even tens of thousands. You have to go back around 1 million years, and maybe closer to 1.5 million. That is long before modern people existed. The cook we are looking for was not like you at all. He belonged to a different kind of human, a species we call Homo erectus. He walked upright on long legs. He had a smaller brain than ours, a heavy brow, and no words as we would know them. But his hands were clever, and his eyes had learned to watch one wild and dangerous thing very closely. That thing was fire. For millions of years, every animal on Earth ran away from fire. A lightning strike would hit the dry grass of the savanna, and the whole plain would flee in terror. Antelope bolted, birds scattered, and our distant ancestors at first ran too. But somewhere along the way, one of them stopped running. He turned around. He looked at the burning grass, and instead of only fear, he felt something new, curiosity. He crept closer to the heat, closer than any animal had dared, and he did not die. He learned. That single change, from fleeing the flame to facing it, may be the most important decision in the whole human story. At first, our ancestors did not make fire. They found it. When lightning set the land alight, they followed the smoke. They learned to grab a burning branch and carry the flame home, feeding it with sticks so it would not go out. Fire became a treasure they guarded day and night, and it gave them things nothing else could. Warmth on cold nights, light in the dark, safety, because the big predators that hunted them, the lions and the hyenas, hated the flames and kept away. For the first time, our ancestors could sleep on the ground and feel safe. But then something happened near that fire that would matter even more. We do not know exactly how. Maybe a piece of meat fell into the coals by accident. Maybe a root got buried in hot ash and was dug up later. Whatever it was, someone reached in, pulled it out, and ate it. And it was better. It was softer, it was sweeter, it was easier to chew, and easier to swallow. That person had no idea, but they had just discovered cooking, and nothing about being human would ever be the same again. So, what was actually on that first menu? To answer that, we follow the clues that survive. And some of the oldest clues in the world sit in a cave in South Africa called Wonderwerk Cave. Deep inside that cave, far from the entrance, scientists found something astonishing. They found ash. They found tiny burned fragments of animal bone. And they found the charred remains of ancient plants. These are around 1 million years old. And because they were found deep inside the cave, the fire that made them could not have been a wildfire blown in from outside. Someone carried that fire in. Someone controlled it. Wonderwerk holds some of the earliest solid evidence we have that our ancestors used fire on purpose. And there is a detail here that makes the case even stronger. When scientists looked closely at the ash and the burned bone at Wonderwerk, they could tell it had been heated at the low, steady temperature of a small campfire, not the fierce, sweeping heat of a wildfire. The plant matter had turned to a soft, silky ash rather than gritty burned earth. In other words, this looked like a controlled little fire, tended in one place, over and over. It looked like a hearth, so picture the scene inside that cave. A small band of Homo erectus gathered around a low flame. The burned bones tell us there was meat. It might have been antelope, or the leg of some other grazing animal they had scavenged or hunted on the plains. They held it over the coals, and the fat began to sizzle and drip. That smell, rich and warm and new, drifted through the cave. When they finally tore into it, the meat came apart easily. Cooking had already begun to do its quiet work. But it was probably not only meat, and this is a part people often forget. The first cooks did not just roast animals, they roasted the ground itself, or rather, what grew under it. All across the ancient landscape, hidden beneath the soil, were tubers and roots. Think of them as the wild ancestors of the potato. Raw, these roots were tough, bitter, and hard for a body to break down. But throw them into hot ash, wait a while, and everything changes. The heat turns their hard starches soft and sweet. A rock-hard root becomes a warm, filling meal. And unlike a fast antelope, a root does not run away. You just had to know where to dig. There is even a name for the delicious magic that happens on that hot surface. When food browns in the heat, its sugars and proteins react and form hundreds of brand new flavors. Scientists call it the Maillard reaction, And it is the reason a roasted root smells nothing like a raw one. The reason browned meat makes your mouth water. Our ancestors did not know the chemistry. They only knew that fire made food taste incredible. And that craving, that pull toward the browned and the roasted, is still wired deep inside you today. This is why many scientists believe the true first meal was not a grand roast of meat, but something humbler. A handful of roots and tubers, buried in the embers of a fire, and pulled out soft and steaming. It was reliable. It was everywhere. And it may have fed our ancestors far more often than meat ever did. The first great human recipe might simply have been dig, bury in ash, wait, and eat. Now, here is where the story becomes truly amazing. Because cooking did not just fill ancient bellies, it began to reshape the human body from the inside out. To understand how, meet the scientist who built the biggest idea in this whole field. His name is Richard Wrangham, a professor at Harvard, and he spent years studying how apes and humans eat. He noticed something strange. Compared to every other animal our size, humans have tiny mouths, weak jaws, small teeth, and short guts. We are, physically, terrible at eating raw food. A gorilla spends many hours every single day just chewing. We do not. So, Wrangham asked a simple question. What if cooking is the reason? His idea is called the cooking hypothesis, and it goes like this. Raw food is hard work. Your body has to spend huge energy just to break it down. But cooking does part of that work for you, outside the body, before you ever take a bite. Heat softens tough fibers. It bursts open the starches in a root and makes their energy easy to reach. It kills germs. It even unfolds the proteins in meat so your stomach can get to them faster. In short, a cooked meal gives you far more usable energy than the same meal raw. Cooking is like having a second stomach that sits outside your body, doing the hardest part of digestion in the flames. And that extra energy had to go somewhere. According to Wrangham, it went straight to the one organ that is most expensive to run, the brain. Your brain is a tiny fraction of your body weight, but it burns around a fifth of all your energy. An animal simply cannot grow a big, hungry brain on raw leaves and raw roots alone. There is not enough fuel, and there are not enough hours in the day to chew it all. But cooking cracked that problem wide open. Suddenly, there was surplus energy and free time. And over hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors traded in the huge gut and the powerful chewing muscles they no longer needed, and they grew the brain instead. You can actually see this trade written in old bones. As you follow the human family forward in time, the teeth get smaller, the jaws get lighter, the gut shrinks, and the skull, holding the brain, swells larger and larger. Cooking, in this view, did not just feed us. It helped build the very thing that makes us human, the thinking mind behind your eyes right now. There is another clue hidden in your own body, and you carry it every single day. Think about how long you can go feeling hungry. Now compare that to how our closest cousins live. A wild chimpanzee spends roughly 6 hours a day chewing raw food just to survive. 6 hours. Imagine losing a quarter of your waking life to nothing but chewing. Cooking gave that time back. Meals became fast, and with those spare hours, our ancestors could do other things. They could make better tools, they could explore new land, they could sit together around the fire and, slowly, begin to share, to teach, and one day, to talk. Because the fire did something else, something we do not always count as food at all. It gathered people. Before fire, night was for hiding. After fire, night became a place to be together. Picture it. The plains go black, the dangers come out. But here, in one warm circle of light, a family sits shoulder to shoulder. The food is passed around. The children are close. And for the first time in the history of life, there was a reason to stay awake in the dark, together, in one spot. Many scientists think the campfire was the very first social gathering, the distant ancestor of every dinner table, every feast, and every shared meal you have ever sat down to. Of course, not everyone agrees on the dates, and that is part of what makes this such a thrilling mystery. Some sites hint that fire was used even earlier than Wonderwerk, over 1.5 million years ago, at places like Kubi Fora in Kenya. Others point to a remarkable spot in Israel called Gesher Benot Yaaqov, dated to around 790,000 years ago. There, scientists found tiny burned seeds, burned wood, and even the bones of fish that appear to have been cooked, all clustered in the same few spots, as if around repeated hearths. It is one of the clearest early kitchens we have ever found. And it tells us that once our ancestors truly mastered fire, they cooked all kinds of things: roots, nuts, seeds, and even a catch from the water. So let us return, one last time, to that very first meal. We will never know the exact day or the exact hands that made it. But the clues, let us imagine it clearly. A band of Homo erectus, huddled deep in a cave or out under a wide and starry sky, a guarded flame crackling low. And someone, a hungry someone, pushing a few tough roots and a scrap of meat into the glowing ash and waiting, the smell rising. The first careful bite, soft where it had been hard, sweet where it had been bitter, warm all the way down. That someone had no words for what they had done. They did not know they were standing at a doorway that led to everything, to bigger brains, to the dinner table, to farming, to cities, to you. They were simply hungry, and the food was good. But that single warm meal, roasted in the coals 1,000,000 years ago, lit a fire that has never once gone out. Every kitchen on earth is descended from it. Every recipe, every family dinner, every shared plate is an echo of that first bite in the dark. So tonight, when you cook, remember, you are not just making food. You are performing the oldest human ritual there is. And it all began with one curious ancestor, one wild flame, and the courage to reach into the fire and pull dinner back out.